This is Eric from TangibleIQ. Today we're talking about synthetic data. We have with us today Gonçalo G from YData. We've got Prabhu from DataDrone, and we've got Tim, who's a data strategy consultant. So welcome, friends. Let's start off with some role play really quick. I'll be the good-natured UPS guy, and you can be the lonely. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a CMO. And I want to learn something about my audience, and I've got a ton of data, but my business is healthcare adjacent, which means there's some sensitive data, and I have to go through my info security guy to unlock it. And so he puts this request on his 6 to 12 month roadmap, and that's no fun because I'm not even going to be interested in this tomorrow, let alone a year from now. So can you help me with that?
All right. So that's actually a very common request, not only in healthcare adjacent, but pretty much in every business, right? Data privacy regulations are getting tighter, and especially in large organizations where there's several departments, and there's a risk of privacy leakage or data leakage that could jeopardize the business itself, regardless of the nature of the data. So by default, organizations are assuming that all data is sensitive and have a lot of security and privacy policies to protect it. And also on top of that, data is now the new gold or the new oil. So protecting it is the same as protecting the business itself and the future of the business. Fortunately, there are now options, all right? Synthetic data, the topic of this conversation, is one of them. Instead of waiting 6 to 12 months for an authorization to have access to data, now is possible to have access to a synthetic data set that mimics the business value and holds the business value that you need without exposing privacy properties. I'm going to deep dive into that a bit more, but just to give you an overview, a picture of this possibility, it's powered by emerging technologies such as generative AI that now, with ensuring the protection of the individual's privacy, you can have data with business value to work with. Going to the technology itself regarding synthetic data, there are several types of synthetic data. Most commonly 3: mock data, simulated data, and AI-generated data. So let me explain a little bit of these 3. Mock data or fake data, it is being used for many years now. If you need to populate a test database to test some scripts, you can input in a database something that comes to your mind. So this data that holds really no business value or has some business value if you are an expert, but you can't do a lot of it. So we won't be doing decision making with this kind of data. The second option, simulated data, has been very useful for scenarios never experienced. So let's say creating algorithms based on physics, create simulations, also ensuring some randomness on the data, but applying to physics laws, has been helping NASA and some other entities to launch rockets, simulate adverse scenarios, and so on. So in this second topic, we are using laws that to generate data that follows these laws. So the output will still be known to the human because we are forcing these laws, these nature laws, to the data itself. The last one, AI-generated data, is the one that is actually very trendy right now, also known as generative AI. We are now using algorithms to, instead of learning from rules or functions or human knowledge, we are learning from data itself, either if it's the internet, in case of ChatGPT, or smaller generative models that can learn from a database and then replicate data with the same nature and same business value. But instead of having G, Tim, Eric, and Prabhu, we'll have fake personas, but with very similar behaviors, still holding the business nature. I'm sure we'll be deep diving on this topic throughout this podcast, so I don't want to take the whole podcast for myself right now. So feel free to ask more questions and have Tim and Prabhu jumping in as well.
Yeah. So what does that look like if we're creating a generative AI data set? Does that need to still be trained on the original data set, or is that using external inputs?
Yeah, that's right. If you want to keep the business value of the data itself, it needs to be trained on proprietary data. The way that YData provides that to our customers is that we install our software in our customers' infrastructure, ensuring their data never leaves, and then we have built-in connections to any kind of database. So it connects to the proprietary data of this customer, and then they can synthesize data sets for safely sharing, augmenting data sets when there's not enough data, or even generating new scenarios that you haven't collected that data, but you actually need for business purposes.
Okay. And then it's safe for my data scientists to use. It's safe for me to explore with self-serve analytics and so on. I don't have to worry about the privacy issues anymore.
That's right, because the output is an output of the model. So the same way that you are generating predictions or doing a forecasting, that's the output of the model, is property of the organization that has executed that model. The synthetic data is the same. It's an output of the model that does not contain any PI information. So belongs to the organization that has produced it.
Okay. And sort of philosophically or methodologically, if I'm creating synthetic data, okay, so I was looking at this gun control study, and what they did was they made up a synthetic Connecticut out of Delaware and Rhode Island. So they were kind of imputing expected values from these other two states. And it received quite a bit of criticism because like there is no such thing as a synthetic Connecticut. But how do you make sure that the structure of the real world is being preserved in the synthetic data?
So since synthetic data, in this case, assuming that you are talking about AI-generated data, the structure will be inferred from the original data set. So this is something really important to account for. The original data should be representative in some way, even if the goal is to generate data for a scenario that you haven't seen before, the behavior of the data that exists will be kept. Okay. So let's imagine the scenario of different states in the US. You have a lot of data from Connecticut or some other place, and you want to generate data for California that you have zero data about. So while generating data for that state, will be conditioning the synthesis to change the state. So zip codes and so on will be different, but the behavior will be kept. So the behavior of the people. Is that something that we really want? Do people in California behave the same way as in the other coast? Probably not. So you need to account for these and customize the generation for your particular use case. Because, well, synthetic data is just like any other AI system. It's not magic. It might seem to be magic, works really well, but you need to be aware of the trade-offs and condition the process itself to serve your needs.
So you're using other things that you know about the world to make smart guesses as to what should be in this new data set?
So you'll be taking the core information from the existing data and then conditioning to the population that you know. So based on your assumptions about California, in my dummy example, you'll be inserting those conditions and leveraging what is known about the data in other states.
Cool.
And what is the biggest benefit from this is that, well, humans can't understand fully the distributions, correlations, and so on within a data set. Models can do, especially deep generative models, can do that way better than us. Nevertheless, models don't have an understanding of the world as humans do. So combining these two, you can actually generate the data that you need.
Got it. Okay, I have a couple of questions for Prabhu about other use cases, and then also I want to talk to Tim a little bit about implementation and how this works in systems and stuff like that. So Prabhu, you mentioned, so it's not just I have sensitive data, it's also, you had mentioned if I'm missing values or if I have a small data set and I need to have a larger data set. Can you explain some of those other use cases as well? Oh, you're on mute.
All right. Enough? Yeah. So it's pretty much a hybrid where you can mimic the data set you have, even if it's a small set of user data. Like Gonçalo said, it's about training the model to understand the pattern and be able to generate the amount of data, the kind of data that we are looking to generate. And that's what we use in training the machine learning models for the data science team. So pretty much, if it's in case of mapping customer journey, right? So there can be incomplete data where it leads to inaccurate mapping of the customer journeys, right? We can have synthetic data fill in the gaps where it provides more accurate and a detailed view of customer interactions and connect those missing pieces where it's broken. So it gives you their behavior across various touch points, if that makes sense.
So that would be useful for doing something like media mix modeling, or if you're trying to do like Markov chain modeling or something. Is that the right way to think about it?
Gonçalo, maybe you can help me here. I'm not sure about those kind of models in here.
It can actually, well, it highly depends on the use case, but regardless of the model that you are using, either propensity modeling and so on, it can help in many ways. Because what the model needs is a representative data set to learn from, so it can be able to better generalize when seeing any kind of data input, right? And by leveraging synthetic data to not only fill in the gaps or upsampling minority classes, that will help the model learn better and be better prepared for, or more robust for, production workloads.
Okay. And now here's something that makes me a little bit nervous. And I know you've probably got an answer for this. Let's say I have a small data set. I need to multiply its size by 10 times. If I cloned that same data set 10 times, I would dramatically reduce the variance in the data set, and it would basically, all my models would overfit to that data set, right? Like, and it would make everything super significant. So is there some way that you're creating error to preserve the right level of variance in the model or in the data?
Yeah, so the same way you fine-tune the model, it's possible to fine-tune the training data set. So you are right, there's a certain amount of augmentation that doesn't add any extra value. Even though one of the biggest benefits of combining synthetic data with original data is to add more variability to the training data set, so the model gets better. After a certain point, that stops being true and kind of can jeopardize the model itself. So one way that we at YData offer that to our customers is to offer them the possibility of run experiments, experiment different augmentation volumes for a given model. So in a nutshell, fine-tune the training data set to ensure optimal results of a particular model.
Cool. It's really interesting. And when I think of, we have a lot of go-to-market strategy projects where we would love to start with, you are here on the map and have some idea what we're working with in terms of audience. And typically we'll sell the go-to-market project, and then they'll say, we also want it to be data-driven, but we can't unlock these data forever. So let's just do the project and have it not be data-driven, and then we'll have that be a stretch goal. So this would help me to front load the data-driven part, so that we're not doing another project that's exactly the same, only better a year from now. So I guess in a way it reduces my margins as a reduces my revenues as a go-to-market strategist, because I don't do the same project twice, but it makes the first project way more valuable. So I really like this way of front loading the data component. I'm curious.
Sorry, Eric. One of the things that I think is often overlooked, especially with, I know synthetic data is more than just AI-based data, but it gives you a new way to unlock the data. I mean, I've worked for some of the biggest telecommunications companies and entertainment companies in the world, and they're willing to and capable of spending millions of dollars on data sets to be able to get this information. If you're a small to medium-sized business, and even some larger businesses just don't have the capital to be able to buy some of the data to inform, and they don't have an option right now. Like there isn't the capability of even considering being data-driven because this data doesn't exist. And so that's when synthetic data becomes not just, it's a necessity. It opens doors that you otherwise couldn't open.
That's interesting. So going from zero data to some data.
Exactly. And you know, there are ways, as I'm sure you're aware, especially in digital marketing, where there's lots of ability to test things with relatively small budgets. You're able to start gathering that data. And so even if you create synthetic data that is based on a very small data set, as you were saying, what you can do is you can start generating that data. You can test in digital marketing, you can start collecting that information, and then you have a little bit more information so that your models aren't so specifically trained on a tiny data set, and you slowly start growing that and growing that and growing that. And as you learn, you can find out, hey, this model was just simply overfit. It didn't perform well in this test, whereas, hey, this model has performed extremely well. And so it's about taking those incremental steps that again, unless you're willing to spend tens of millions of dollars to buy, you know, a very specific data set from a large data vendor, you just wouldn't have the option or opportunity to be able to do.
Okay, so because I know everybody wants to be data driven, but there's no such thing as perfect with that goal. So it's a crawl, walk, run. We can come in, help you find a direction, and start walking in that direction, and then start to increase the resolution from there by refining the models.
Most definitely. And you know, especially in a digital world where, you know, privacy is becoming ever more important, there's less and less fidelity you're getting. So if you want to run something on a popular social media site, generally speaking, you're only going to be able to get really detailed insights for that specific social media site, and they won't let you remove data from that social media platform because of privacy reasons. Really, it just increases revenue to that site because they're able to make themselves look better than maybe some of their competitors. But what this does is it allows you to be able to take the little pieces of information that you are getting, namely somebody clicking on the ad and coming to your site from an ad, and take those little points of information and build out a much larger data set that is robust, that does actually give you a more predictive journey for those customers.
It's interesting. So when let's say so somebody clicks on an ad, we've got a couple of data points that don't really tell us very much, but we see where they live, roughly. We can see their zip code or something like that. Are we relating that to are we relating that to other data sets? Like, do we go to the Snowflake marketplace or something like that and then figure out everything we know about people in that zip code? Or like, where are we getting this outside information, and how does it integrate in the whole data stream?
So it'll depend from vertical to vertical, I would say, what is actually important and what you would want to bring in. I would say some of it you want to start with just your internal knowledge as to what has anecdotally been useful. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not going to speak specifically for YData, but in general, what you want to do is you want to start with what you generally do know. And so website data can include fidelity down to the city that somebody's in. Of course, the higher the fidelity, the lower the accuracy. So you may want to zoom up a little bit and maybe go with a state or even country, depending on, you know, what products you're selling. But yeah, ultimately, yes, you can get data just directly from an IP address and know that there's a ton of rich information that you can get just from an IP address. Sometimes if people do have Snowflake and they have access to the Snowflake marketplace, a lot of times you can start layering in some of that rich data that you have there. Or it's possible, I'm always surprised to see what marketers dismiss as data that can't be used. And there's often a lot of data that isn't necessarily privacy-based, but it's product-based data. What features people have been interested in that you'll want to start including and saying, hey, people in this region of the United States tend to be very interested in these features, whereas people in this region tend to be interested in these features. Now, is it because you marketed those features in that area? You know, there has to be some knowledge that's layered in that may not necessarily be prevalent in the data, but yeah, it's tough to say because there's always a rich set of data that is hiding that maybe isn't necessarily thought of off the top of somebody's head. Okay,
so this doesn't sound like it's just a technology. It doesn't sound like synthetic data is just a technology project. It sounds like there's some qualitative discovery that has to happen at the beginning to get to that institutional knowledge. Is that probably when you're thinking of how you structure an engagement like this, would you start it off with some sort of discovery?
Yes, it generally starts off the discovery to understand their data landscape better. And so we understand their gaps and the no-brainer use case that they might have where it's a starting point for us to integrate synthetic data to set that as a benchmark, which can expand in terms of long-term success where it can have access to other areas of marketing strategy.
Okay. So if we were to come in and do this with a client, we would come in, we'd need access to somebody on their marketing side, maybe somebody on their sales side, and somebody on their business strategy core team. Like, is there anybody else who needs to be involved in that decision making?
So it's primarily the marketing team, marketing analytics team who has access to the data. Otherwise, data science team, if there is one, depending on the maturity model of the company, if they have a data science team or not. But either ways, it's synthetic data is the foundation to start with building machine learning capabilities, even if you don't have any, is what I'd say.
And if they've got a data science team, why don't they just do it themselves?
Gonçalo, over to you.
I can pick up on that one.
Go ahead. I have some general thoughts on that as well, but go ahead.
Yeah. So we get into the build versus buy dilemma, right? Well, I don't think every company out there wants to build their own ChatGPT, just like OpenAI did, right? It's a very complex technology, emerging technology. The talent is scarce. The same goes for pretty much everything, not only synthetic data. If a given company has a core business that is not tech, especially not emerging tech, why should they try to build themselves? And I'm saying this while being a provider of one of the most popular open source packages for synthetic data generation. So that's how YData was born. We first developed open source. It is widely adopted worldwide. We have more than 1 million downloads every month, but still companies need more help. They don't want to fine-tune, optimize, work on the models to have them working at scale. That's highly complex and requires specialized talent, which YData has, thankfully. So we have a commercial offering that abstracts all of that. You deploy it on your cloud provider, all the scalability, all the optimizations are now abstracted for the user. You select your data sources, you add your data sets to the catalog, and you generate synthetic data that you want. So you don't need to take care of all of those complexities of implementation. Nevertheless, of course, many times for a specific use case, or if they need more help when there's not a data science team available, let's say, we partner with implementation partners like DataDrone to help the customer achieve that.
And as you know, Eric, like marketers will change on a dime what they want, right? Today it's all about thing A. Tomorrow it's about thing B. Quite literally, from day to day, it will change. And so what a tool like this would do is it allows for more rapid development and more rapid investigation, where a completely custom solution may take a lot longer. This not only enables for more rapid development, but it also enables people that aren't necessarily like super proficient data scientists, but are more business analysts that have been taught how to properly use a tool to be able to develop something and quickly and get it out the door when it just wouldn't be possible, or there's no possibility of getting something out that quickly otherwise.
Cool. So you're basically attaching sort of rocket boosters to their existing, whatever they have existing, whether that's just institutional knowledge, whether that's institutional knowledge plus a data science team who's very good on the analytics side, but doesn't want to do the full engineering build. You come in, you've got this process, and then it's just blending that with the discovery and understanding their business.
Yep. it's good to give the business analyst that power, right? Because they will have insights into the business that maybe a hardcore data scientist who is constantly in the model may not have all of the details. Now, I would argue they should have all the details and they should know those things, right? But it's not always feasible. And I can't tell you how many large companies that they're being pulled in 50 directions. They've got to get something out the door quickly, and they don't get the time to really understand the business case that they should. Whereas empowering those business analysts or those data analysts that are closer to the business would enable that kind of thing.
I see. And Tim, I'm curious because I like the way that you big picture things. Where do you place synthetic data in the big picture? Where is it moving? Like, how is it moving along with everything else that's moving? Like, how do you see this in 5 years or so?
Again, I think it depends on the size of business. For small and medium businesses, this is opening a door that just isn't there right now, right? If you want to be able to understand your customer base better, it's generally speaking buying data or relying on attempting to stitch together, multiple marketing platforms data, which is just a nightmare. And frankly, may not be feasible with new privacy laws that are coming up. So for small and medium businesses, it's opening a door that just you couldn't open otherwise. For larger businesses, I think it's exactly what we were talking about just a moment ago, where it gives all of these people a quicker way to get to deploy a marketing campaign, or to do a new test, or to see what something may be. And I think on some level, some pieces of synthetic data are already being done today. If you look at a lot of the big players, the Axions, the Epsilons of the world, a lot of them already are putting together some level of synthetic data. People don't realize that when they buy a data set from an Epsilon or an Axiom, that's a model data set. The way they're able to get 99.9% coverage on the people that they're selling you, they're already building it.
Right.
This is something that is already being done. This is just putting it's taking it away from these big data companies and handing the capability over to the business users or to the data scientists that work at the company that have more information. I think this is a critical step that is only going to grow over the next 5 years in companies, and you're going to see it grow massively.
Let's say hypothetically that I was trying to market this product to CMOs who don't know that they need it, and I'm trying to figure out how to optimize my search engine keywords and so on. What are they typing? Hypothetically, what are they typing that they don't know that they want synthetic data?
Oh, that is maybe not the best. That's maybe not a good question for me. I will tell you that CMOs are generally speaking one of the more difficult people to win over, but it's usually done by showing them the capabilities in the marketing side of things that they're able to do. So for instance, whereas today, if you were to give a data scientist a problem and say, hey, can you build this model for me? I need to understand how things are performing. And assuming they have the data, assuming they are able to build it, it could take weeks for them to build a model, test it, make sure that it's working right. And then it may be, as you said earlier, overfitting to the small data set that they have, right? What you have to show is that, hey, you want to run an A/B test in email, you want to run an A/B test on social, having the synthetic data set pre-built, ready to go, that's clean and active, it will take a 3, 4, 5 week process down to maybe a week to getting something out the door. And that is generally speaking what will sell them. Now, what search terms they're using, I will let somebody else speak to that and how they are finding these products, because I don't think synthetic data is going to be, the term is going to be wowing necessarily any CMOs out there.
Right.
So I've been doing some contents around synthetic data, and I've did my research on what people look for and how to effectively frame the contents around it. What I understood was customer data enrichment, where they're looking for better marketing and filling gaps in the customer data, like I said, the journey mapping. And privacy and compliance, that's the most, like that's the top result, top hit, where they're looking for compliant data strategies for marketing, GDPR, privacy preserving data for marketing. And then comes customer segmentation, which is what I identify as a no-brainer use case to get synthetic data integrated into their data ecosystem to start with before they expand the marketing strategies to other areas. And then comes A/B testing and optimization that gives a lot of risk-free marketing for them. They can optimize marketing strategies with synthetic data for A/B testing. And if they have data science and machine learning, then comes predictive analytics and marketing to model their data. And those are the key areas that I notice their attention around which I'm tailoring all my content strategy towards, if that helps.
That's very helpful. I will tell my friend who's interested in this that that's the keywords they should use. Hey, Gonçalo, I know that we touched maybe half of 1% of like the depth that you understand about this, but I think that's probably about right for the podcast. So what I'm going to say is synthetic data is looking like a way to speed things up quite a bit for all your marketing operations in the future. If you're interested in learning more about synthetic data, or any of the, if you're on a data science team and you have technical questions, we can get Gonçalo on the call with you, and we can get anybody you like on the call to talk about use cases. So guys, you're a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on the podcast. We'll send out the link, brand it however you like, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.